I grew up on a farm here in the southwest of the UK, so a beef farm, which my dad's still running, and so that, I guess you'd have to say I was always interested in commodity markets. Back in the day, I wanted to get as far away as I could from all things agriculture and left and became a trader in the city, swaps basically. And from there set up a number of different technology businesses, and completely unrelated, but that's what took me to Chicago in 2016. And walking past the CME every day on my way to work, I became just increasingly fascinated by, here is an enormous operation that I was intrigued by, not because of the size of it, but more about what was its purpose, what could it do, why did people like my dad not use hedging in any format, and if it could be simplified, well, what could that do, how exciting could that be, and that exercise in thinking about how we could simplify hedging has really guided Stable all the way through, basically. Part of the original thinking was I was really thinking, how do I make hedging so simple that someone, a farmer like my dad, would feel very at home? And part of that came out of that sense of feeling like, I think insurance could have played a bigger role here. You know, no one questions or no one thinks that insurance is complicated. And again, if we can put it in price insurance terms, well, that made perfect sense to me. So for us to do something truly different required two things. One, we needed to use existing industry data so that we could create a hedge that was more precise. But also, if we were going to enable us to work in commodities that have never been able to be traded, no liquidity whatsoever, we needed a different form of liquidity. And that's where we did the work originally with Lloyd's of London to bring in insurance capital into the commodity markets so we could make it just as easily in avocados as we could in almonds. We didn't need the liquidity of a market. A lot of animal protein, US animal protein has always been fantastic for us. And at the same time, the organic grains is another fantastic opportunity. Poultry and eggs, another one. These huge industries that have never been able to have any form of liquidity, and yet we can come in and offer, using typically a USDA index, or Mintech or Urner Barry or whoever is most relevant, and write a contract on the back of that, backed by AAA rated insurers. We have about a third of our team is involved in the underlying indexes. So we actually have a library of 8,000 of them. Typically we focus on more like 500 or 600, but ultimately there are 8,000 indexes from 60 different countries, 70 different providers, third-party price reporting agencies. We aggregate them onto our platform. Now in that process is an awful lot of work, right? So we have to check them, we have to check whether it be the quality of the data, how often it's required, how long it's been reported, lots and lots of steps, and then we have to get it approved by our risk capital suppliers, if you like. So in that step, as long as we can cover off all of those angles, which is a grading paper that grades them all out of 100, if they get over 75, then they can come onto the platform and we can write business. So it is actually incredibly quick, typically about an 8-week turnaround. The clients that we typically, our sweet spot tends to be mid-market food manufacturers, right? Those guys, retailers are obviously well used to pushing the volatility down onto the processors and the manufacturers. So for us, those guys are a real sweet spot. So typically, privately owned companies, mid-market size, who are processing or manufacturing food commodities, tends to be our number one goal. And then on the farming side, it's really the cooperatives. So we're kind of going in at a kind of mezzanine level where we're just using aggregators to then protect that cooperative, who can then go on and pass that on to their members. So two sides to that same thing, on the producer side as well as the manufacturers. At the moment, it's all about North America. So we do have customers who are based all over the world, but we typically interact with their US entity. So we do a lot in Central America, South America. We've got clients, some in Europe, but I would say 95% of them are absolutely US focused. And we do that very deliberately because there's so much demand for what we do. It is a huge, huge kind of thing. We've got to be very careful to be disciplined and not get ahead of ourselves. And gradually and slowly, but we'll add more countries. But right now, it's all about America. It's almost sort of unrecognizable, really. And we were a cliche of a startup that span out of a university, right? So we had a lot of data scientists, a lot of mathematicians. We were almost like an academic project. And since we last spoke, you get that classic kind of rebalancing where lots more commercial people coming in. So directors of ex-CME and Dreyfus and Rabobank and all of these types of organizations have kind of joined us to basically let us grow up as a business, and we're now just shy of 100 people and growing really fast. So it's been a really interesting process, quite a fast transformation from a little startup to something that's now scaling pretty rapidly. Well, the home of hedging has always been, it sounds a grandiose vision of what we're saying, but it's always been about simplification, means that so many more people can benefit from what we can offer. And really, that raise of 60 million is obviously a huge Series B. And for me, it's about doubling down and saying, what other markets aren't we looking at? Typically in the US to start off with, how can we be better? How can we widen our product offering? And how can we bring in more people, more expertise? And it's all about scale, really. That's all we've been focused on.